With a bound, the Balrog leaped full upon the bridge. Its whip whirled and hissed. From shadow and flame, the Balrog, Durin's Bane, glared at the wizard through monstrous eyes. Pure malice took hold in the flame of Udun, the servant of Morgoth, as he shifted his gaze away from the wizard, towards the greater prize, the men behind the wizard, the elf, the dwarf, and the halflings. One of them carried a great power, an artifact of another servant of Morgoth. Durin's Bane felt its call, its power, its draw to tyranny and chaos. With a snap of his wrist, the Balrog used his whip to lash the Fellowship from afar, and this caused distraction enough for Durin's Bane to swipe Gandalf off of the bridge of Khazad-dûm, sending the wizard into the abyss. Relentless, the Balrog roared, and as the Fellowship fled before him, he gave chase and caught them before the first hall and the east gate of Moria. They fell afore his fire and fury, and the prize of the halfling was his. As the Fellowship of the Ring and the hope of the free peoples of Middle-earth fell to the Balrog and his might, Durin's Bane sought for that which he could sense, the One Ring. Taking the ring in a taloned claw of a hand, the shadowy force of flame set his glowing eyes upon the simple gold band, the heat of his flame bringing forth the etchings of Sauron's hand. His handwriting, perhaps, the Balrog might have recognized. Even so, the ring grew in size, to fit the sharp finger of Durin's Bane, and in that moment he recalled in his mind the armies flying from Thangorodrim upon Middle-earth, at the behest of the Dark Lord Melkor, whom Durin's Bane had once served. Durin's Bane, like all Balrogs, was a Maya, and so the One Ring worked its evil and twisted powers quickly, drawing him towards the depths of his greatest power, towards the goal of taking greater mastery over others, over the world. Turning away from those whom he had slain, the Balrog looked back towards the halls of Khazad-dûm, the caves where he had slumbered and slaughtered since the elder days of the world. Little grand did such halls seem to the Balrog now, as the memory of the forests of Beleriand burning took hold in his mind. One with power such as he, and such power as he could now manifest, would be wasted in the kingdom of the dwarves. Turning towards the eastern gate and coming through, into the glaring and blinding sunlight, Durin's Bane looked towards the distant golden wood. He remembered his last moments before fleeing from Beleriand, the fall of Angband during the War of Wrath, the capture and exile of his master. And in his heart he missed the greatest downfalls of the free peoples. Since those times, Durin's Bane had no purpose unto himself, slaying dwarves and taking their halls. But now he has greater power, and a will of his own to dominate and conquer. Therefore Durin's Bane went forth, a flame and a darkness upon the mountainside, following the river to Lorien. With Durin's Bane taking and wielding the One Ring, Sauron would certainly sense this shift in the fate of Middle-earth. Indeed, it was no longer in the hands of the free peoples, as the Dark Lord could tell. Yet Sauron knew that the ring, while it would eventually try to find its way back to its true master, would give a creature such as one of the Balrogs he fought alongside during the Elder Days a vast amount of greater, more magnified ability, and the desire to conquer and destroy. Good, thought the Dark Lord, for this would shift the fates of the free peoples towards evil. While the Balrog, whom Sauron must have suspected to be in Moria given his sending of orcs there many years before, brought fire to one of the only realms that could actually have hoped to oppose Sauron, Lothlorien. And while this happened, Sauron could press his advantage upon Gondor, and he would do exactly that. When Durin's Bane finally came to Lothlorien, he let forth his vast power. With a fiery sword in one hand and a whip in the other, the Balrog would extend his darkness to encompass the light of Lorien, while his fire spread, and the Balrog slew and overpowered many elves as he went. This would be a nightmare from the past for many High Elves, who would have painful memories and have heard many stories concerning such creatures from the First Age, whose power was at least potentially equal in spirit to that of Sauron or Gandalf, would flee with Celeborn, as her powers with Nenya could not compare. They would flee where they could. Now let me pause in the theory here and point something out. In the lore, we don't know exactly how intelligent Balrogs typically are, particularly because we never hear them speak in the tale, yet Gothmog, the greatest of Balrogs and the captain among them during the First Age, must have been quite intelligent to be one of, if not Morgoth's highest-ranking commander in terms of his field forces. Yet I do not believe that the Balrog would or could have attempted to dominate the minds of, let's say, the bearers of the 3 Elven Rings, as his mind would be turned far more towards chaos and destruction. So I must imagine that the Balrog had some moderate to low level of intelligence, but could, of course, follow simple orders and make simple plans, but he was not some strategist, like if Sauron or Saruman had gotten the ring. While Durin's Bane burned the north as though they were the woods of Doriath, in the name of his ancient master Melkor, Sauron would push upon Gondor in the south sometime after this, likely sooner than he did in the canon timeline. But as for Rohan and Isengard, I believe that Saruman would actually see the potential devastation of Middle-earth for what it would be, and he would be left with 3 options, as the Balrog, the scourge of Middle-earth, would inevitably make his way southwards towards Isengard as well. Saruman could leave or flee, or he could attempt to appease the Balrog and rally by Durin's Bane's side, or, if desperate enough, Saruman could attempt to reconcile with the White Council in order to have enough power to defeat the Balrog and attempt to take the ring for himself. But I believe knowing Saruman, who always tried to position himself with the evident victor, would do just that, using his forces defensively until such a time when he might meet with Durin's Bane. Durin's Bane, on the other hand, would see Saruman as rather inconsequential either way. Either Saruman would be a servant to his greater plans of chaos and vengeance for Melkor, or yet another petty enemy to annihilate, like so many others. As word of the terror of Durin's Bane, as well as the flames of his coming, spread throughout the lands, and the Beornings, elves of Mirkwood, men of Daleland, dwarves of Erebor, and so forth, would be scattered or slain, for with the One Ring, a magnifier of the power of a being, especially one such as a Maya, Durin's Bane would be nearly unstoppable. Like a great explosion dropped on the lands of Middle-earth, Durin's Bane would continue his conquest to the corners of the land like he remembered Melkor doing, but he would do so himself with less tact, less of a will to rule, and more as an agent of pure destruction. Even Sauron would likely flee or recuse himself to Mordor until such a time when the ring might betray Durin's Bane and go back to its original master in some way. All Sauron needed to do was bide his time. The White Council, at least its remaining members, would be the only ones with any hope to stop the roving Balrog, and even then, they would be wise enough to know that they could do little, even together. Therefore, I believe Elrond, Círdan, and others would do the only thing that they really could in this moment, and seek out one with enough power to stop Durin's Bane, the Master of the Forest. For an enemy such as this would actually see the old forest burn to ashes, and if anything could make Tom Bombadil care more, it would indeed be this. Just as Tom cared enough for the hobbits to save them from the Barrow-wights, I must imagine that Tom would not sit idly by while Durin's Bane covered all lands of Middle-earth in flame and shadow. There was little hope of defeating Sauron, even if Durin's Bane was slain and the ring taken back by the West, but that would be a far more manageable task than this situation. Therefore, I do think Tom actually would get involved and take up some sort of battle against the Balrog, as the Balrog roamed near the old forest. And there, in Eriador, the only one on this side of the shore with power enough to potentially stop the last Balrog of Morgoth, who claimed the ring, would fight him indeed. In such a battle, Tom Bombadil against Durin's Bane, who possessed the One Ring, it is difficult to say who might win. Yet I do think Tom would actually be capable of pulling it off, potentially with the intervention and aid of Iluvatar himself, who would certainly not see all of his children slain by the Balrog. As Tom Bombadil would use his enigmatic power to defeat Durin's Bane and relieve him of the One Ring, the decision would once more be left to the wise of the West, without many of their own people and allies, to decide what was to be done with that ring. Particularly as Sauron would then make his move, and continue to expand his dominance over the West in search of his powerful artifact. The Free Peoples would have a very difficult, desolate, but not entirely impossible road ahead to walk, if they would find victory over the ring and Sauron, due purely to the chaos and destruction wrought by Durin's Bane. if he had gotten the One Ring. Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. I also hope you all enjoyed this video. It was fascinating to try and imagine what would have happened for this theory, but certainly it would have led to darkness and ruin for all of Middle-earth if Durin's Bane got the One Ring. But my friends, let me know what you all think about this in the comments below. Would it have happened like this or some other way? Please let me know, and since it is a theory, there are certainly no right or wrong guesses. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and share this with a friend. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles for our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Weta or United Cutlery, Lord of the Rings swords, statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout. And please take a look at our merch and Patreon. Also, please check out Zwood and their wood-carved maps and clocks, and use the code in the description for 15% off at checkout. All of these different places are helpful to the channel, so thank you so much. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Peter Shepard, John Hume, Reese Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Moon Viper, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. Thank you so much to all of the supporters for this channel. It really means a lot to me. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the free peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with a video on the War of the Rohirrim and Dunlendings, in preparation for the upcoming anime film. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.